There are seasons when the room goes quiet and heaven feels like a closed door, not hostile, just still. You pray and the words leave your lips but seem to hover in the air, weightless, unanswered. You read scripture and every verse feels like a window you can see through but not open. You ask for a sign, a shift, a sudden rescue, and instead you receive silence that stretches longer than you thought your faith could bear. Yet in that silence something begins to happen that noise could never accomplish. Roots go deeper, motives get sifted, fears lose their grip, and your soul discovers that time in God's hands is not empty, it is holy. The God who saves is also the God who waits. He is not late, he is not indifferent, he is not stalling because he ran out of power. He waits because love is patient, and love refuses to bring a gift before the character to carry it has been formed. He waits because he sees the end from the beginning while you only see the corner you are cramped into. He waits because rushing a miracle can ruin a soul, but shaping a soul can make room for the miracle that lasts. Waiting with God is not like waiting at a red light where nothing changes, it is more like waiting in a vineyard where unseen roots are knitting themselves to strength. Consider the stories you already know. Abraham waited through the ache of calendar pages while promise kept beating like a drum in his chest. Joseph waited in rooms that felt like the opposite of prophecy. David waited in caves with oil on his head and enemies at his heels. Israel waited between prophecy and Bethlehem, between Bethlehem and Calvary, between Calvary and the upper room. And creation waits still, groaning not because God forgot, but because God finishes what he starts. Whenever God appears slow, he is doing deep work. Whenever God is quiet, he is tuning the heart that must hear him next. If you listen in the quiet long enough, you will notice how he begins to reteach you time. He loosens your panic about clocks and strengthens your trust in seasons. He reminds you that seeds do not bloom because you stare at them, but because he hid a future inside them that cannot be hurried without being harmed. You stop measuring faith by how fast prayers are answered and start measuring it by how faithful you remain while you wait. And in that waiting your eyes adjust to a different light. You begin to see small mercies you used to miss, a verse that meets you at the exact wound you hid, a breath that arrives in the center of a stormy thought, a closed door that keeps you from rooms where your identity would have fractured. You begin to sense how his restraint is a form of protection, how his not yet is a shelter pitched over your becoming. Slowly, he makes you less hungry for outcomes and more hungry for him. When you are ready, he starts to rearrange your days. Not with a shout, but with a gentle insistence. Open the scripture before you open your phone. Speak gratitude before you list demands. Ask for wisdom before you ask for speed. He teaches you to live like a pilgrim rather than a tourist, lighter, quieter, clearer. He gives you practices that do not depend on feelings, the prayer you pray even when your chest feels hollow, the worship you lift when the song inside you is only a whisper, the act of kindness you choose while you are still waiting for your own door to open. And then something begins to happen that only waiting could build. Peace settles not because circumstances changed, but because you changed. You discover the secret that anxious people cannot believe. God's delay is not his denial, it is his preparation, his mercy, his wisdom doing surgery at a depth that quick answers never reach. You do not feel forgotten, you feel held. You do not feel stalled, you feel steered. You notice how the anger that used to flare now flickers and goes out, how the old urge to control now bows faster to trust, how the wound that once dictated your tone now informs your compassion. You find yourself praying different prayers, not make it happen now, but make me ready whenever you do. Not give me what I want, but give me whatever will make me like you. Not prove them wrong, but keep me right. The God who waits with you also waits for you, for your surrender to become sincere, for your forgiveness to become more than words, for your obedience to step beyond good intentions. He waits for you like a father on the porch at dusk, not pacing, not scolding, but watching for the shape of his child to appear on the road. When you turn, even slightly, you find he has already closed the distance. And in that embrace your heart learns how to carry both ache and assurance at the same time. This is not the absence of desire, it is the sanctifying of it. It is the miracle of wanting God even more than you want what God can do. Of course, the enemy will tempt you to hurry. He will offer counterfeits dressed in the urgency of now, half-baked opportunities that stroke your ego but starve your spirit, alliances that promise speed but cost you peace. He will whisper that waiting is wasting, that patience is passivity, that trusting is a kind of naivete. But you will know better, because waiting with God has made you wise. You will smell the smoke of shortcuts and choose the slow holy fire instead. You will keep your oil burning at midnight, not because you know when the door will open, but because you know who is coming through it. On some days you will feel strong in this, on others you will feel every second like sand in your teeth. On those days lift the simplest prayer you have, Jesus, teach me your pace. Sit in the silence like soil. Let his word fall like rain. If all you can do is breathe his name, then breathe his name, it is enough. The God who waits is not grading your eloquence, he is guarding your becoming. And when at last the hour arrives, and it will, the shift may not look like fireworks. Often, it looks like an ordinary door that opens on an ordinary morning and somehow leads to the room that fits the shape of everything he formed in you while you waited. People will call it sudden, but you will know it was slow. They will call it luck, but you will know it was love. They will call it timing, but you will know it was a teacher with nail-scarred hands who walked you through days you would have skipped and taught you songs you could not have learned in any other key. If you are in the waiting now, do not despise it. Light the small candle of gratitude and let it burn ridicule-proof. Practice the long obedience, stay kind, stay honest, stay prayerful, stay available. Bless the ones who hurry past you, they have their lessons too. Keep your heart clean of bitterness, because bitterness will always accuse God's patience of being cruelty. Guard your tongue from declaring death over what God has only delayed. And when you are tempted to count the days, count his faithfulness instead, the nights you made it through, the tears he caught, the doors he kept shut because your heart would have cracked under the draft. The more you count like that, the more you will find a strange joy visiting you, a joy not tied to outcomes, but to presence. A joy that walks you to sleep and raises you to hope. A joy that does not need to be loud to be real. And in time, you will become what you once prayed for, a person who carries peace like a lamp, who speaks softly but with weight, who moves without panic because you have learned to move with a God who never hurries and is never late. When others come to you frantic for answers, you will not hand them clocks, you will hand them Christ. You will tell them the truth that sounds like a lullaby but is strong enough to build a life upon. The waiting is not a hallway outside God's office, it is the workshop where he fits your soul for what he has promised. And when he is ready, and when you are ready, you will both rise together into a future that did not arrive quickly, but arrived wholly. Until then, breathe, bless, believe. Keep the oil of your devotion full. Keep the door of your heart unlatched. The God who waits is with you in the waiting, and the hand you cannot see is already writing the mercy you will soon live.